Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. I'm Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance is a Path to the Universal Dancer, and your host for this summit. My guest today is Bobbi Bailin. Bobbi is an international teacher and choreographer of sacred circle dance. With her training in Alexander body awareness and Gurdjieff sacred dance and energy healing, Bobbi has been exploring the transformational power of conscious movement for 40 years. She approaches sacred circle dance as a natural and direct path to access the sacredness of our humanity and to experience personal and spiritual alignment. Bobbi's choreographies are richly profound and embody all the elements. She creates dances to evoke qualities of healing, joy, gratitude, and deep connection. And her choice of world music is unique and entrancing. Bobbi's dances have become a beloved part of the repertoires of many circles around the world. Together with her original choreographies, Bobbi offers dances from a variety of cultural traditions and places she's traveled, with a focus on creating peace, harmony, and community. She designs her programs to transport us into deeper connection with self, with the dances, with the flow of the sacred, as she gracefully guides us to move with ease and conscious awareness. Her teaching style is gentle, clear, and peppered with humor. With an ongoing desire to contribute to the dance community, Bobbi runs dance retreats in her area and offers mentoring and guidance to new and experienced teachers. She's been a guest teacher in South America, Brazil, Canada, England, Korea, and in circles around the USA. In 2019, she will be teaching in Morocco and offering a week-long dance program at Findhorn, where the sacred circle dance began. She continues to learn from many well-known teachers while creating unique approaches to the sacred in our circles. She is currently working on her program of the 7 portals into sacred circle dance. As one of her students said, Bobbi approaches the dance with reverence and playfulness. She embodies and communicates the sacredness of the dance through her whole being. Hi, Bobbi. Welcome to the summit.
Hello, Leslie.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for inviting me to talk about sacred circle dance.
You're welcome. And we're excited to hear what you have to say. This is something that I've heard of, but I haven't ever experienced. So I personally am very interested to hear more. But before we go into that, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about how you got started in dance to begin with in your life. How did dance come into your life?
Well, I can tell you that I wasn't a dancer. I'm not a trained dancer, but I explored a little bit of expressive movement. And being interested in Alexander technique brought me very deeply interested in how the body moves. And then,
so when did all that happen? How, like,
that happened in my late 20s. And then I went to a spiritual community that had a 9-month course in transformation based on the work of Gurdjieff. And there we learned these sacred dances. They were called the Gurdjieff Movements. And he had gone around to the East to collect these sacred movements and gestures and put them together in ways that supposedly people on a certain level, when they watch, they're transformed. And certainly it was transforming to be part of the dancing, to be dancing. And that just, it was an experience I'd never had before. So I started to train to teach them because I was so deeply moved and changed by the experience. And then I encountered a sacred circle dance once, and I realized we can get to the same place very quickly without having to study any spirituality. The study of the Gurdjieff work was very rigorous. So I do have that in my background, and learning how to hold the sacred in my body and to allow this energy to flow through me. So it's helped me a great deal, but I embrace sacred circle dancing right away.
So tell us a little bit about it. What is sacred circle dance? Just
Oh, okay. Well, the circle.
a general
It's a circle. We don't always dance in a circle, but that's the basic form. And that means we are connecting, and it's a sacred form. The circle itself represents unity and harmony. There's no hierarchy in a circle. You can see almost everybody in the circle, so you're already part of a community. And the dances that we do have a huge range, and teachers have a huge range of how they approach it. So I say from ancient times to present time, because sometimes I teach a dance that I choreographed the day before, so it's very present.
In the
but
moment,
I like to
dance.
combine, right? And so we hold hands. The basic form is we're in a circle, we hold hands, and the leader will teach the steps of a dance, and then the group does the dance. And the more we do the dance, the deeper the experience is for us, because in the very beginning, you're struggling with steps. Well, some people are. It was designed really to bring together any group of people to be able to move together. So the steps are simple. And some people think some of the dances are complicated, and I say, the steps are simple, it's just more simple steps that you have to put together to learn a complicated dance.
The quantity of simple steps, yes. And so they're choreographed. I mean, you choreograph them before you actually do the dance. I mean, this is something you've choreographed, and then you teach it to the group, whatever group you happen to be with.
Yeah, I work on choreography. However, there are many, many dances that come from cultures all around the world that are traditional dances. And that's our language. What has come before? We're really honoring all that has come before. And people feel often when they're joining in a circle that they've been there before. They know these people, they know these dances. We're connecting with our ancestors. This was part of life, you know, when before modern times, people danced for celebrating the harvest or the full moon or births, marriage. It was their form of getting together in community. And that still happens in some cultures, not in ours. So that's what we've been bringing this back. This way of communicating and being together in a sacred way. Some people don't like to use the word sacred in front of circle dance because they're afraid that it's going to be mixed up with religious dance. So it's very clearly not liturgical. Uh-huh. It's not connected with any religion or any belief system. You can believe what you want, but I will tell you, going around the world and dancing with a lot of people, they're all family. We all believe in the peace and harmony and the possibility of creating that with our dancing. We're modeling it. And then we always hold the energy after each dance and after a session. And with our intentions, we send that out to the rest of the world. That's where beautiful. It's needed. So we believe in the energetic healing power of this.
And how is it presented? Like, do you do workshops or do you do monthly gatherings? I mean, what format does this usually take?
Many. So I used to run a week-long camp on Cape Cod, right by the sea. I said we're dancing surrounded by water because there was water on all four sides of us, yes. With a drawbridge in front of the... many people hold weekly dances or monthly dances. I just finished a dance retreat up in Quebec, up in the mountains, a beautiful spot. And it was a workshop on dancing the wisdom of the trees. So that was a whole weekend focused in one theme, but it was all circle dance.
About this, let's just go into that a little bit more. What's your concept of sacredness?
I call it the everyday sacred, because every moment in our life is in a way is a miracle and something to celebrate. And we have so many opportunities to connect with people, but we don't act like that. So coming into the circle, we're starting by honoring the land that we're on and the people whose land it was before, connecting with our ancestors. And all of this is, to me, very spiritual. And then we're connecting, we're honoring one another. Everyone in the circle is equal. So we're honoring that and honoring the people who have choreographed dances, who have taught dances, who brought me to where I am. And who knows where I'm going, but all of this is a sacred connection of a fact that we're spiritual beings. And
remembrance is the word that keeps coming while you're talking. Nice. Remembrance is the word that comes to mind.
Yeah. And that's a memory, that's not just a mental concept. Very often we're doing a dance or doing a gesture or repeating a certain pattern, and it brings up connection. So we have this connection with each other because we're all moving together. And then we have connection with the past and whatever the theme is of the particular dance or the whole week. All of that connects us with the spiritual aspects of what it means to be a human being together with others.
And it must bring up that feeling, I'm going back to remembrance again, but that it must bring up something deep in us. Like you were saying, all ancient cultures used to do some kind of circle dance. So it must be very, I don't know, like a deja vu kind of thing when people go into the circle and start dancing together. Is that the sense that people get? I mean, from your feedback, is that the sense that people get when they do these dances?
Many people report exactly that. Not everybody, but you don't have to actually experience it to really know that that's what we're doing and to notice it. And we're experiencing the community right there as we dance. So it's building in people. So even if they're not connected with the ancestors or the grandmothers or the spirits, you're feeling something that's extraordinary, so out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But it's based on ordinary occurrences of being in community with people.
And if it brings up joy, this is always a good thing. I think people really underestimate that the power of joy and just being in the moment and doing something that's joyful and fun. Yeah, just to bring that into our day. Let's talk a little bit about the healing power of these simple dances.
Yeah, and I will in just a moment, but I just want to jump into that joy. Yes, it's joyful, and yes, it's fun. And sometimes we have to touch moments of sadness. We did a whole circle dance after one of our dancers died, of her favorite dances. And some of, that's also the ills and the problems in life, people would gather, and dancing is one way where you share it. So in some cultures, they will cry together or do other things, but dancing together also can holds all the emotions. And
I
actually,
think
that's healing too. Yeah.
And I think it's really a good way to move through grief, because I think grief, especially in Western culture, is something that we get stuck in because we're not supposed to really acknowledge it. So I think dancing through it is a very healing way to move through grief. And if you could come together and and dance that person's dances. That would be a really nice way to do that and celebrate somebody's life.
Absolutely. And there have been times that I've been struggling and the circle has held me. And when we know somebody is struggling, then we can actually do, like a friend came to one of my retreats and her husband had just died. So I could alter the program to hold her with this grief. And there were other people too who had grief to share. And it just united us all. So she felt very held. And we didn't need to know him. We didn't need to know circumstances. And then there are ways, you know, the body can just let go of certain emotions. You know this, movement frees up our body. So the bringing up of joy, sometimes we block that, and moving all of a sudden opens the pathway for that, as well as tears and laughter. And so that's healing in itself, I would say. But there's been studies done that when people are moving and they're moving in the same rhythm with the same movements, and they visually see other people doing exactly what they're doing, and then also physically moving together, a wave happens in the circle, and there's a certain resonance that happens in our body. And a certain harmonizing, even just seeing this happen. So
entrainment.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that word.
It came, so synchrony was right. No, because I find this a really interesting aspect. For me, my dances are not necessarily the same as yours, but I tell students, just look at me and move with me, and you will start doing the same movement. That's entrainment. We just have that ability to connect to somebody else's movements and begin to do them ourselves in our body. And it is that simple. So I imagine in a circle, in your circle with simple dances, that's a very beautiful thing to let people experience, to move into that.
So often in a circle, we start with just a dance that is basic walking steps. Not just walk, 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 but walking and then doing a little something and holding hands at heart level. And the energy then moves through the heart level. And as we're moving around in the circle, there's this entrainment that you mentioned. There's also a harmony, a connection, an instant developing community among, we could be total strangers, and that begins to happen. And then it's mesmerizing, you know, when we practice a dance, when you don't have to think about what your feet are doing or your arms are doing or watching the leader. Once you get to that point, then you can let go of the thinking part, the worrying, am I doing it right? And move into something that's more meditative and mesmerizing. And I should say, using the word right, I have to be careful about that. Some teachers say this mantra to new people, that they don't have to. It's funny, I'm forgetting it at the moment.
You don't want to say it.
Oh no, it's there's also a range of teaching and belief in how important it is to be exact with our movements. So with the Gurdjieff movements, every movement had to be absolute exact. Our hand could not be off like that. It had to be straight, because the energy that moves through our body moves in certain pathways, and it's much more powerful when we're straight. In circle dancing, we don't make that kind of demand, so people have the ability to express themselves. But people worry about doing it right. My mantra is saying, as long as you're going in the same direction, the rest of us are going.
As long as you don't bump into anybody,
right,
you're doing it right.
Right. But the saying is there are no mistakes. There are only variations. And because I still think in terms of mistakes sometimes, because I want people to get that real importance of what a gesture is speaking to us about. I joke and I say there are no variations. It's the only mistakes. And then people laugh and then they're lightening up. The whole point is to help people be light about it, because the lighter you are, the freer you are to let all this energy and spirituality move through you.
But there's a lot to be said for simplicity, I think. I think that's what takes us to the depth. When things get too complicated, then that, I think, is when you go into your head. You're trying to figure out how to do it. So I think if something is very simple, you'll get it quickly, I guess, is the point. And then you can go into the depth of whatever the movement is, because you're not focused on doing it right or without mistakes. So you can go in, you can feel into it, I think, because of the simplicity. I like simple movements. I think that's what takes us to depth. So to get out of the head.
Absolutely. And so that was part of the Gurdjieff training, was and belief that, we are, and this is now current thought. It wasn't when I first started studying this, but that we are head, body, emotions, spirit. We are all those things. And Gurdjieff's idea was to integrate them all so they're all equal. Some people are more in their head, some more in their body, but we have the intention of integrating all of that through simple movement. And so you do need some thought. Sometimes you want some information. Sometimes it's helpful to know this is an old Turkish dance that was carried by the Ram people from India. And it's very similar to dances done in all the Balkan countries. And that helps people have some perspective. Some people need information before they can move on. So they get a little bit of information about the dance, and people have different learning styles. So we try to address all of that as we're teaching. So the teacher will demonstrate. So for those people who learn from watching, people will describe what we're doing, because some people have to hear the word right, left. Some people have to see it. Some people don't know the difference, but as long as they're moving in the same direction, they figure that out.
It's this way.
Right. And then, there's some people, I'm a real feeling person. So it's so important for me to feel the movement. And that comes when people have been able to stop thinking, as you say, and just let something else happen and something else take over.
To release their head into their body, I guess.
Yeah. So I like to start with grounding dances sometimes. It helps people get out of their head. Simple dances where the feet are really connecting deeply with the earth. And then talk about how through our feet, that energy comes up from the earth, and the earth is supporting us and giving us this. And so that's a nice idea. It's a nice concept, but the dances actually do it. And then there might be gestures with the hands that help bring up the energy. And you're seeing everybody do that. Sometimes you can see the energy rising. When the Native Americans in this country do their powwows and they're dancing, sometimes you can see the energy that they're bringing up from the earth. Their connection is so deep. So I like to start with bringing people deep into the earth. Gets me out of my head.
Yes. No, I agree. And that's a big part of the dance I do is all the grounding and discharging and connecting to the earth, because we are so much, we're programmed to be in our heads. That's the way that we're taught. That's the way we're taught in schools. It's all into your head, and we've forgotten the body, which I think is kind of that feminine aspect to be embodied. So I think it takes a lot of work, a lot more work now, to get us into our bodies. This is also a topic that I love because I love circles and that concept of community. But tell us a little bit more about that whole philosophy in the sacred circle dance.
Of creating community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say you don't have to be a dancer to come and join the circle. And actually, sometimes you don't even have to walk. There are people who can work with people in wheelchairs, but generally it's whatever it's our body that we're using. We're bringing that to the circle. So that's my everyday sacred, that we have it right there. And we're bringing it to a circle, holding hands with people we don't necessarily know, or we do know, but you can be any size, any shape. You don't have to be a dancer. You don't have to wear scarves and frilly stuff, although it's a lot of fun to have a swishy skirt when you're dancing. And I should say, we do fast dances and slow dances and meditative dances, a huge range of type of movement. And so sometimes you have to adjust to who's there. Some people can't raise their arms, but it's all happening together, one person supporting another. And so it's like a caring family. And we are all equal, even if some people are beautiful dancers and some people kind of trip over their feet. We're all doing the same thing with the same intention of bringing peace and harmony, listening to this music from all over the world, dancing dances that recognize all these different cultures. So it's building a world community in that way.
And do you do intentions? Like, do you set intentions and things like that before a dance, or hold intentions, or anything of that nature when you're doing the circles?
I do. That's very important to me. It's not necessary for the community to develop. Often just someone will teach a dance and it's a song about peace. And so people are hearing the words. But sometimes it's in some language we don't understand, but we understand it with some other part of us. And some people, when they first come, they don't know what their intention is. And I like to set an intention, but also I don't like to direct too much what people are gonna feel and think. I think it's a mistake sometimes when you say this dance is gonna bring about a feeling of, because then if there's someone in the circle, or many people in the circle who don't get that feeling, for whom it feels something different, then they're feeling like they don't get it. So there's the non-verbal part of an intention that gets set. So if I can explain this, we use silence as well. I use silence. So after a dance, I like to hold the silence, and many teachers do. So you're holding the energy of the dance. It's still going. Some energy of that dance is still going. And the connection between everybody is happening. So we're standing in a community and we're holding hands, or we're next to people and we're quiet and we're just feeling. And there's a palpable connection that is happening, that we're holding. So we built a container. We've generated energy, and the silence lets people give whatever definition to that, or let happen within themselves what is happening. And the deeper we go, the more that is universal, that we come to a place where we're all feeling a sense of peace or gratitude or healing or letting go, you know, if there's been something tragic.
And then what happens after the dance? Is there like a processing or a sharing, or does that sort of depend on the facilitator, how you want to come out of the experience?
Depends very much on the facilitator. So some people will mix it with poetry or artwork. So generally in a 2-hour session or a 3-hour session, there's not a lot of time for processing, but there's always space for it. So there's always space for somebody to speak out, or often I'll have a feeling that something's going on in the circle. And so I'll ask. And then someone will speak out. They feel, what I've been told is they feel the safety. Mm-hmm. That's another aspect of the healing. I'm jumping all over the place now because all of this is connected.
Community, yeah,
and community as well.
I mean, we're here to support each other and create and hold space for each other. Right. So,
and so there are dances where we move into what we call a hug hold. So instead of holding hands, as we move in, our arms slide, and we're hugging, we're getting closer and swaying together like that. So if something comes up in a circle, we can add that kind of a dance to hold that energy. And it's so healing for the person and comforting. And if somebody actually doesn't like this kind of connection, they can hold a scarf between them and the person next to them. So there's room for everything. I think that's the beauty of it. And that's the community and healing aspect of it too. I'm glad you brought that up.
And I imagine as the facilitator that you probably do just get a sense of how it needs to unfold as you're in it. How long have you been doing this, by the way? How long have you been doing the Sacred Circle dance? Forever.
I think it's almost exactly. How many lifetimes, right? Uh-huh. Well, it's about 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've studied with a lot of teachers. I won't name them all here, but I probably should put that on my website, how grateful I am to all the people who have taught me. And I do like to teach other people's choreographies that speak to me. I don't just teach my own dances, and I believe it's very important to dance the ones we don't know the choreographers to, but the ones that we call old traditional dances. So there's some people who really just work with those dances.
And are there themes? Like, do you do a theme to a gathering, for example? Like, we're going to do traditional dances, or you try to mix it up?
Oh, often. So a facilitator can say, there are facilitators who only teach the traditional dances. And I believe the movement started at Findhorn Foundation with Bernard Vosian, who was a dancer. He wanted to bring back, as I understand it, he wanted to bring back the intentions of these dances that folk dancers do all the time. But they just do the dance without thinking about, oh, this is something that celebrates the harvest, or, I mean, they might just mention that, but a harvest, that's a rich time of year. That's a rich concept. And so there's so much about what goes into the harvest. And so bringing back the intention of the old dances was really where this started. So intention is always there.
There used to be like a harvest season, but now we have agriculture that produces food all year round. So there isn't necessarily those seasons or those particular times of the year. So probably to kind of revisit what was behind those dances, the intentions behind them and the feelings behind them, again, can tap deeply into something deep within us, just because those may be events that aren't necessarily happening in our lives anymore.
Absolutely. They are happening, but we don't recognize them. We don't honor them. And so that
Celebrate
is,
them.
yeah. But
Go to the
also
grocery
knowing.
store to get your food, and most people don't think about where it came from or when it came or how it got there or anything. So I think we have lost that connection. So bringing it back into our minds would be a really good idea.
So the word connection is a big, important word for me. There is that connection we've talked about with the people that you're dancing and with the old dances. There's also connection with what do these things mean that we're living through? So harvest, you know, there was planting, there was intention, there was being thankful that there was rain and sunshine, being grateful that the earth provides for us. It's so rich. And so that's what makes our dancing sacred. That's why I like to keep that word there. Yeah. It's not it's not religious, but it's sacred because it's just honoring all the forces that keep us alive. And then it's connection with spirit, whatever you believe, God or Yahweh or whatever it is that you believe is a higher power. If you believe there's a higher power, you're connecting with that in whatever language you know. But the body has its own language. And so that connection happens.
And how do we bring this sacredness like into our everyday lives?
I think first of all, we're modeling it, you know, in the circle. And so we're leaving with a sense of having this connection with people that carries us through. We've built the container so that we don't just break hands and walk away. We're recognizing that we've built something together. And then, you know, we go off and eat and talk and chat, but there's something left. There's something in the air. And of course, as I said, we've sent out a lot of it. We hold it, we take it in ourselves, and then at the end, we send it out to the world. So I know that we can't really heal the world by doing a dance and sending the energy out to the places where they're fighting. But it's on our mind, it's in our hearts. And I really believe it makes a difference. A lot of spiritual teachers say, first find peace within yourself. So that's what we're doing. We're creating a microcosm of what a peaceful society could be, where we allow the diversity of people, of everybody, of everyone's beliefs. Somehow we find we can move together. We all have to eat. So we've all worked to bring this food there that maybe we're celebrating that there's the harvest. What a miracle and what a blessed time, because if that didn't happen and if all those people weren't engaged, that food wouldn't be there. And I'm just using harvest as an example for many qualities of life.
Also what you said about, you know, maybe it's not going to bring world peace, but I think you've got to try, you know, making the intention to try. Like, it's not about the outcome. It's about try to make something happen within ourselves to make that intention, especially in this kind of voyeur world that we live in, where we're watching everything happen and not partaking in it. Well, do a dance for it. Come together with other people and at least hold that intention. And maybe it doesn't end the war, but at least you tried. So I think it is important to do these things, not thinking about the outcome so much as just participating and becoming human again.
Yes, indeed. And you know, all the arts do this. Painters and musicians. And luckily for us, musicians will compose a whole symphony for peace, or, you know, collection of dances with those intentions. And artists are painting and poets are writing and people are telling stories. And, you know, we happen to be people dancing. I was just about to say we happen to be dancers, but you don't have to be a dancer. But as soon as you enter the circle and you start moving with us, you are a dancer, I think,
Yeah.
you know, but you don't have to be a good dancer. And sometimes being a good dancer gets in the way because you're thinking about the proper way to stand and hold things. And it's not about that. It's letting that go helps your body be freer. But
It's about participating. Yeah.
I'm thinking about how you said it doesn't bring peace. I went to South Korea. I was invited to do a workshop there of a couple of days. And it happened to be at the anniversary of a massacre that happened on this island where I was teaching. And it took the government maybe, I can't remember now, 40 years to acknowledge what had happened. It kept being suppressed. But then the people kept insisting, and the government built a beautiful peace park with all these memorial buildings. It's a beautiful place. And they asked me if I would lead a dance there to commemorate that time. And so I choreographed a few very simple movements, and they showed me the building where it would take place, which turns out to be a spiral. Two dark, well, all the stone there is volcanic. So it's black walls that created a spiral. And you go through the spiral with black walls on either side, and you come into the center, and there is this white patch in a circle with a woman holding a baby who has fallen. And it's one of the bodies that was found in this massacre. And she was running away. So it's very powerful. You walk through this dark walled spiral. So we dance slowly into it as a processional. And then you come out into the center and see this statue reminding you of the horrors of war. And then we danced around that and went out and danced out in the park outside on the earth. It was extremely powerful for these people. It's not my culture, but you ask about processing. When we got back to the place where we were dancing, I asked people to just take a little time to speak about something. And within 2 minutes, I went and got the box of tissues and passed that around. It was so touching. I mean, they didn't translate everything for me, but they didn't have to. So that was incredible healing of one small little event in a culture, but so important to those people. And that,
but again, I think you get stuck in, you can get stuck in these emotions, and to be able to dance through it is a wonderful way to release it.
Yes. I'm getting choked up thinking about it because it's needed everywhere. I remember when Yugoslavia was all in turmoil, and I wanted to do a peace dance, and I chose a dance from every country, one dance from every country that surrounded Yugoslavia, including Yugoslavia. So that's just a way, of I was going to say virtual, not virtual. It's symbolically asking for peace, holding communities, holding different cultures. And we do a dance that is basically a Greek dance, a very simple step, and we use a piece of Turkish music. And that's a way of uniting two cultures that have been fighting for so many decades or lifetimes, I don't know. But that's another thing we do. There are musicians now who are doing the same thing, and I find myself very strongly drawn to their music, where there'll be Arab and Israeli musicians creating music together, creating that harmony. So it's in the same spirit that we dance. I don't know if I've gotten off topic, but
no, I think you're right. I think you're right on topic. We're back to the healing aspect, but most definitely. Yeah. And it is. Dance is something that unites us, and that's what we need. The world is in this turmoil because of the separation or the better than or the hierarchical, as you mentioned in the very beginning, that you dance in a circle. This is a very different dynamic, and one that we need to embrace again. Everything is a hierarchy. That's what we've lived in for centuries, and we need to get back to those circles and that union. And I think that's the only way out, really.
Yeah, and I'd like to add something that I didn't say, that this is not a performance dance. And I think that really helps people when they know they're in the circle, that they're not being watched. You're not doing it for performance. And I have nothing against performance dance. It's different. You're there for the experience alone. And it doesn't matter what you look like or what the circle looks like. Although there's some beautiful videos that are taken from above that just show the patterns are incredible. They're sacred geometry, when you can see what patterns we're making on the ground, on the earth. And I know Mother Earth loves us dancing on her. But if you look from above, you can see these sacred patterns. Sometimes they look like flowers. And that's another aspect of our dance that's sacred, that's not really seen that much from the perspective of the dancer or somebody walking in and seeing it. Because
but I'm sure it's felt. I'm sure it's
yes.
felt by the dancers, even, because sacred geometry gives off a frequency. So you must be feeling it, even if you can't see it.
You named it. Exactly. That's how it is. And I had a program come to me. So basically, our instrument is our body. So all of us dancers, you and all the people, the wonderful people that you're interviewing for this summit, and all the ones you've done before, they've been wonderful, by the way. Thank you. I find them very enlightening. This program came to me, I call it 7 Portals into Sacred Circle Dance, but it could be for any dancing. And it's basically what we carry with us. And the first one is the call, like what brings us to this. The rest is parts of our body, our eyes, through our eyes, we see what you're talking about, that we can see the patterns, and then it's embedded in us, and it also is reminded in us, remembered in us. And we're attaching to sacred geometry and sacred patterns. And of my program, Dancing the Wisdom of the Tree, we're connecting with patterns in trees, which are repeated through the roots, through the leaves, through their interaction. And what we hear, I've learned this through energy work, goes directly to the heart. And if you think about that, music does that. Where the eyes, we have some filters from what we see, but music goes right to the heart and speaks it. And then we're using our body. We're using physical gestures and steps and movements. And then we're using our energetic body, which not everybody really thinks about or is aware of. I think dancers, people who do Alexander technique and body work are much more in touch with the energy body. But that one's moving, and that one speaks to us non-verbally too. And then there's the heart. When we're in a circle and we're holding hands, we're connecting through the heart chakra. Sometimes we feel it stronger than others, but that's happening. Sometimes I just like to draw attention to it. Sometimes I just like to draw attention to what's happening with our hands. There's this powerful energy in every part of our body. So if we can dance and be aware of our energy body, it's very rich and it's very connecting to spirit. And also gets us out of our thinking.
And I think often you can feel it moving through your hands. I mean, that's the nice thing about holding hands in a circle, is that you can have that experience of feeling the energy move through the circle, through your hands, because they're very sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to bring attention to that when we're dancing. And so after a dance, and if people don't get it, you can clap and you can get that sensation in your hands. And then I'll say, well, let's say that's love. Let's call it love. And so offer that love to the person next to you. And then with love in your other hand, connect it. And just before you connect it, feel that energy. There's a big connection between, I think we can see it, you know, the hands, and then connect. So rather than just grab your neighbor's hand, you're making a sacred connection just in acknowledging that this energy is flowing.
Prepare yourself to connect.
Prepare yourself. And at any moment in the dance, you can come back to it. We lose it all the time, but we can always come back to this. These portals, I call them portals into.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your free gift. You mentioned this what you did with the trees, and I think that's related to your free gift. So tell us a little more about that.
Oh, yes. Oh, it was suggested that I offer a PDF that people could download if they want or read. And I was showing another dance teacher what I prepared for my program, which was dancing the wisdom of the trees. And she said she wanted it published. You know, she thought it was wonderful. So I'm hoping that other people will relate to it in the same way. I'm describing my process and my intention and talking a little bit about trees and what's being discovered or revealed now that's happening in forests, which is this interconnection that happens also in our circle. So I'm calling it similar to what our circle is. And I took out some of the qualities that we share with trees and designed a program, like I mentioned, the grounding. We would start with, you know, trees are under the earth. And so deep grounding dances that bring us ourselves grounded and earthed. And then dances that move the energy up through our body, up to the heart, out through the hands, which are out through the branches, and then branches connect. And all of these patterns, you know, a tree, whatever pattern is in the branches is also in the leaves and sometimes in the seed. And so I've described that process that I went through so that you could see how you can take any theme and create a program using just dances. I did give them homework because they had a long time to sign up. And the homework was to find a tree and spend time with it and see if there was a communication that comes to them from that tree, from having spent time with it. And wow. that was a time we did some sharing. We took time I asked people to bring a leaf from their tree. We created a center. So there's another thing. We are focused on the center when we dance. So the center is usually something we put together, and sometimes they're elaborate, sometimes they're simple, but they're a beautiful meditative focus. And I'm not saying that's the only focus, that is a place of focus. It helps us keep the circle for people. Often we're in a place, it feels like the room is slanted because the circle tends to move into an egg. So it brings people back to creating the circle shape. But it's also, we're all focused on that rather than looking around and being distracted. It helps us meditate. It helps the mesmerizing aspect of the dance. And it's often meaningful. So we created, out of the leaves that people brought, we created a mandala on the floor. And each leaf represented a story and some quality that a person got from their tree. So it was a very meaningful center. And I like to have meaningful centers. So you can represent 4 elements. If it's harvest, you can put a potato in the center. Whatever. I have a potato dance, so I have not put a potato in the center, but I could.
Something you harvested, yeah.
Well, it's just nice to have something that is, symbolic. And sometimes the group will make the center. I like to keep it simple because if it's too busy, then it's too distracting.
Then everybody's looking at that instead of dancing.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the PDF. It's a description of my process and my belief in qualities that we hold in the circle, like diversity. The real health, a really healthy forest they're discovering is an old forest that has the diversity of many plants and many trees and many beings. So instead of cleaning up a forest, when a branch falls, if you let it rot, it creates all kinds of other activity among insects and fungus and all these things I'm not naming right now, but
the
all the
cycle of
animals
life.
right, and it feeds the trees. Some provide shade for other trees, but it's a much richer environment and a much healthier forest. So there are people really trying to save it. So that everyone brought it, most people brought a very different tree into the circle that they had spent time with.
Wow.
So I just described that, and some of the qualities that I came up with that I feel is the same as our dancing and the same as what it means to be human, or any living creature on the planet shares a lot of these qualities. And then we dance them. So that's my gift. And I'm happy, really happy to share it. And certainly people are free to contact me if they have any questions. Or I should mention before we go that this dancing is done in over 30 countries in the world. And once a year now, we have something we call World Circle Dance Day. And this year there were, I think, 30 countries represented and almost 300 circles. So some countries like Brazil, which is a very large country, have many circles. And smaller countries might have one or two. But on the same day, we did the same 3 dances. And it's another way of building this world community. There's a global circledance.com is a website. Whatever country you live in, if you want to try to find a circle dance near you, you can go to that website. And I'll put it on the PDF so that you know how you can link to it. And you can find a circle near you and see what it's like to experience a circle dance. And I'm happy to travel too.
Well, that sounds wonderful, and your PDF sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading that. So thank you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing all your wisdom and your experiences with us. Thank you,
Leslie. You can't imagine what a wonderful honor this is, and I am delighted to share this dancing that I love. And I thank you for doing this whole summit. Thank you for choosing me to represent Sacred Circle Dance. And there are many people probably would say many different things about it that I haven't covered. But if people seek it out, they will experience it for themselves.
You've given us a glimpse. You've whet our appetites.
Great.
And thank you to the listeners for joining us. And download that PDF so you can see what Bobbi's talking about with the trees, and maybe you can have that experience as well. All right. Well, thank you, Bobbi. Thank you, listeners. And bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Leslie. Bye, everybody.